Hello, my name is Taylor Coyne, joining you from Los Angeles.
And my name is James Cook, coming to you from Indiana. We both research retail and real estate for JLL.
And this is everything we know about retail.
That's right, Taylor. This is the show where we tell all of you guys everything we know about retail, 3 things at a time. So, Taylor, what do you know about retail?
I know that retailers are investing in virtual fitting rooms. James, what do you know about retail?
Well, one thing I know is that Google has announced its first permanent retail store is going to open this summer in New York City. But before we get into that, I want to hear more, Taylor, about these virtual fitting rooms.
Wow. Here's the first thing that we know about retail is that retailers are investing heavily in some virtual fitting rooms. And James, as I kind of go through it a little bit, I'd be really curious to hear your take because shocking, I have opinions.
Wait, are you perhaps skeptical about virtual fitting rooms?
Perhaps I am. I think there's a time and a place for augmented reality, and I'm just not sure if there's a huge future, but let's get into it. So, as you know, we've talked about this before. Augmented reality is not new. We've seen it in the furniture space. Helpful, can be. Super realistic. I
think for furniture, take a photo of your living room and then you can see what the couch looks like.
It is helpful. And then, you can look at your phone too in real time and scan your living room. It has applications and it's definitely better if you're just trying to figure out if something works. We've also seen it in the makeup beauty space too. I think that helped beauty brands a lot during the pandemic, but again, not new. Ulta, which I didn't realize how long ago this was, their glam lab, so you can go in, you put your face in there. I can test all the lipstick colors that launched 4 years ago.
Wow.
And I don't have any stats on this, but I would assume that it really, again, picked up during the pandemic. You're trying to do something fancy. You ran out of products. You're not going to the store. You're not trying anything on. So that's for sure. And then to this. So again, it's not new. And this came out in 2019. So take this also with maybe a grain of salt and see how this has changed. I was surprised by this stat. And if this is true, then it maybe only became stronger. But according to a Nielsen global survey from 2019, consumers listed augmented and virtual reality as the top technologies they're looking to seek to assist them in their daily lives. So 51 said they were willing to use this technology to assess products.
You know what, Taylor? I'm shocked that 51% of people knew what augmented reality was.
I mean, also, to be fair, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that one. So, wonder who the, survey base was on this. And in addition to that, Shopify said their interactions with products having 3D or some kind of augmented reality content showed a 94% higher conversion rate than for products without augmented reality 3D, which is a lot. Again, who knows how big that sample size is. But so the reason I'm bringing this up is so last week, or I guess maybe the week before, Walmart announced it's going to be acquiring Zeekit. Zeekit is a company that works with brands to build AR technology so you can try clothes on at home before you buy them. What exactly does that look like, you ask? So glad you did ask. Here you go.
I feel like we're going to get a YouTube tutorial right now.
I mean, that's how I learn about all what the kids are doing these days. You just look it up on YouTube. So this whole idea is that this is just a guide on how you take a photo so you can actually, see what these clothes look like. And it goes through, it's a minute long, but at the very end, after you followed her instructions, this is her trying on all of these different outfits. Now it's the end of the video, but you get the point.
I see. So you've got to do a lot of work.
Yes.
To get this photo of yourself with a tripod or a friend and take it at your belly button and wear skin tight clothing. That sounds like a lot of work.
Correct. It is not necessarily the easiest thing. However, once you get it in, you can, I think your options are a little bit once you've done it, you're good. And so this is just kind of an example too of some of the styling that they do, which can be really helpful. So this is less you have to take your photos, but you find a model that looks like you. So you can see, especially during the pandemic, I'm not sure why this is so fuzzy at the moment. So I'm not sure if that's showing up on your side too. But basically, imagine that you needed something during the pandemic and you're on a retailer's website. And I mean, I think this is particularly true for women. This is like my favorite thing that anyone I've ever seen. There's some post on Instagram or something that it was like 5 pairs of jeans from 5 different retailers, all in the same size. They were drastically different. So again, this is really helpful when you're trying to make an online purchase, basically getting a body double. And so Walmart acquired this company, which is a pretty big deal, which means they are, no joke. This is something that they feel strongly about, that there's a future here and that this is going to help them compete in the e-commerce space. So, which again, that kind of makes sense as where we're headed, and e-commerce certainly isn't going anywhere. And then Walmart, by partnering with Zkit, it's not just Walmart brands either. You can do it with their third-party labels too. I think it's Free People, Levi's is on there also. So you can it's not like I'm going to go on the Walmart website and only be able to get Walmart brand clothing. And so it's not just Walmart either. Snapchat recently bought a few companies to expand their AR e-commerce presence. One is Fit Analytics, the other is Screen Shop. So you can put a filter while you're on Snapchat, and it can be like the new nail polish. I can try on a Gucci bag. I can put on Dior shoes. And they're just filters, but of course, then there's a purchasing aspect to it. I have no idea what the conversion rate is if I'm, kind of putting on these Dior shoes on Snapchat. But that's the whole idea, is that you can kind of make these connections and work with these different brands to get them in the eyes of all of these different consumers.
Do you remember Snapchat spectacles of a few years back? You remember they had the spectacles vending machine? It was a real flash in a pan. So Snapchat just announced the new version of the skepticals. That's you. The spectacles have built-in augmented reality. Now, here's the thing. They're not released widely. They're only giving them to select people. And apparently, the batteries on them only last for about 30 minutes, which may be why. But anyway, so the idea is you go to the mall, you put on your Snapchat spectacles, cannot talk today. And you would see and you would see an overlay of whatever, some kind of retail experience. But you could see doing that at home, where you look at yourself in the mirror with your spectacles on, and you see yourself overlaid with different clothing, something like that. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of the
right
what
on.
Is it
spectacles?
Yes, and again, I see where everyone's going. And again, Spotify came out with another interesting stat too, that they say customers that tried on clothes in augmented reality were 40% less likely to return the product, which, we've also talked about on the show on how returns are just killing some of these retailers, especially this last year. So I can appreciate the effort that is going in to try to kind of fill this niche space as this technology is continuing to improve. But honestly, my take, of course, during the pandemic. And again, I applaud everyone for pivoting and trying something. We had no idea how long this was going to last. I'm just not sure where it leads. I think there's a time and a place. And again, we've seen it in the furniture. That makes a lot of sense. Apparel is trickier. We're talking about human bodies, So I'm not sure where it leads, but I think we've heard some pretty interesting news just in 2021 about some of these acquisitions. So I don't think it's going anywhere. We'll just see if it continues kind of to plateau or what.
Let me ask you this. I just recorded an interview for our Where We Buy podcast that hasn't been posted yet. It's for an app called Miss Tyler. And we probably have talked about this app in the past. When you log on, you type in your body dimensions, and then you follow, it's like Instagram, but you're following fashion influencers that have the similar body dimensions as you. So the idea is that you're not seeing some like supermodel that looks nothing like me. wearing clothing, I'm seeing somebody who looks like me wearing clothing. So if I can, and then it's shoppable too. That's the other thing. There's like buy links. So I don't know. Do you think that's more realistic?
Yeah, I kind of like that more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for some reason too, and again, I think all of this, especially that second video that I showed, it kind of ties this into this body positivity that you do not have to be what we've considered as like this typical model that we've seen for a long time. So I'm more into that. I think that that's really smart. So maybe we'll see more of that kind of thing. So maybe that's the future. But hey, we'll see. So that's my take on augmented reality. I feel like let's report back on augmented reality in 6 to 9 months. It's either fizzled or we've seen more acquisitions. Time will tell. And in the meantime, James, what else do you know about retail?
Well, Taylor, I think it's time to talk about the second thing that we know about retail. And it is that Google has announced its first permanent retail store in New York City.
I'm actually quite excited about this news.
Yeah, I think it's cool. So I was trying to look up. So we went, I know you might have gone to a Google pop-up yourself, but do you remember back in 2016, Google had a pop-up on Spring Street in Soho? Do you remember that?
That's the one. That's, I think, the only Google pop-up that I've been to.
Okay, because when I tried to go, I don't know if you were with me or not. I was so excited. I did all this research. They had a virtual reality thing there. They had a kitchen and a living room set up. I was so excited. We got there as they were closing for a private event. So I'm standing outside trying to look through the window. Did you ever get into it?
Yes, Ari and I went. Ari and I spent probably an hour there testing out. So the rooms, you got to test out the Google Home. You got to test out their Google Pixel camera. And I remember like they had this whole kind of like installation thing with these like worms hanging down from the ceiling. And it wasn't worms. It was just like neon string. And it was supposed
Instagrammable photos that looked best when taken on your Pixel camera, right?
Because it emphasized the low light. And yes, they were also whatever the Google VR is as well. So not to rub it in, because it sounds like I'm not sure if you ever actually did make it, but it was great.
So Google's obviously proved that they do a great job with in-store retail experience. They also did store-in-stores in Best Buy, which were much less extravagant is what we're talking about here. But let's zoom in here and check out this location. So this is a place that we've been to a lot. This is 19th Ave and West 15th Street in Chelsea. Google bought this is the whole Google campus around here now. One of their two kind of big New York hotspots where they have a lot of office workers. So in 2010, I think, they bought the Port Authority building. And then in 2018, which I can't believe it's now a number of years ago, they bought Chelsea Market from Jamestown, which was just such a big deal.
Yeah. And 2018 was not that long ago, but again, considering this last year, everything was just a time warp. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a decade ago.
I know. So they paid $2.4 billion just for Chelsea Market. For those who don't know, Chelsea Market is this great retail amenity for the area. It's got the Artists and Fleas. Is that what it's called? Artists and Fleas Flea Market or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds close enough that I will say yes.
Yeah, there's a food hall. There's some great retail. Neighborhood Goods has a cool store there. A lot of great stuff. Oh, wait, Starbucks Roastery is right. Is it in? No, it's around the corner.
It's right around the corner, but it is huge and also very nice.
So it's the place to be, like, especially if you want to drive like the hip tourist traffic, which, the non-hip tourist traffic is Times Square. The hip tourist traffic would be like Meatpacking, Chelsea Market, right?
Yeah, of course. And then you walk on the High Line. It's great. Yeah, it's the whole shebang, the whole New York shebang.
Right. So anyway, there's 11,000 Google employees just right there on that campus.
Wow.
The store, which this is a rendering of it right here, looks great.
Big.
It looks pretty big, right?
Really big. I was not expecting it to be like what looks like an entire city block.
Yeah, but they may, since they own the entire building, they might just be using the windows for part of it, and you go in and the store isn't that big. I didn't see any numbers on size, although I bet if we roped in our friend eBerry, our researcher in New York, he probably knows how big it is. We'll do a follow up on that. So they're going to sell Pixel phones. I forgot they own Nest, so they're going to sell Nest products. And then they're also going to sell Fitbit products too. I guess they own Fitbit too. I
didn't
didn't
know
even
they did.
realize that.
I didn't know that either. Maybe they acquired them a couple years ago or last year. Who knows?
Yeah. Now they've said in a press release they're going to do experience. They're going to do some kind of experience, quote, in a variety of immersive ways, but no details.
That is the good marketing jargon that I love.
So we're just gonna have to wait and see. I mean, we know, Taylor, they've done cool stuff in the past, so they'll probably do something cool in the beginning. I was just thinking about it, like it is just around the corner from the Samsung 837 Experience store, which is pretty ambitious. It's closed for COVID right now, but my guess is it'll open up this summer. And that, I mean, how do you describe that? That's not even a store. You're just experiencing there's like VR and video games and Samsung
I mean, there's like
phones.
a whole row of just those big chairs where you do VR.
Right.
And that's a huge space too. That's a 2-story, really big space. And, again, you're not going in there and like buying hundreds of dollars of products, thousands of dollars, which I would assume they would hope maybe that you would do. You're really just like having a good time, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, there's nothing for sale at that Samsung store. It's just about the brand. They're just selling the brand. It's also just around the corner from an Apple store. Taylor, did you know the first Apple store opened 20 years ago at Tyson's Corner Mall, May 19th, 2001? I could not believe it was that long ago.
I almost actually wished you asked me what I would have thought the store opening would have been, because I'm pretty sure I would have told you 8 years ago. Maybe more than that. Probably more than 8 years ago. That's not true.
Yeah.
I would have had to think about it though.
Yes,
I would never have guessed 20 years ago, but I would have probably been more on like the 10 to 12. I'm trying to think about like when I, went to college where I bought my computer. I don't know. It must have been an Apple store.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, people would buy Apple stuff online a lot too.
Memory lane.
Yeah, I know. So this Google store is going to be similar to Apple in that there's going to be on-site tech support, people to help you out with your Google technology and different devices. It's interesting. You've got Google going one direction, opening new stores at the same time where Microsoft announced last year, kind of mid worst of the pandemic, that they closed all of their retail stores. Which were very similar to Apple stores. And clearly they were trying to kind of match that branding, but just was never as popular and successful. I mean, Microsoft is a brand that doesn't really need stores. I mean, they run your business and they don't need that hip factor.
No, and that's what I was going to say. Like, I know clearly they were trying to and getting into that kind of different revenue stream. But, when you think about Microsoft, again, part of your daily lives for most of us, but it's in the realm of Word and Excel.
I know. It's
PowerPoint.
Almost like it's been so much a part of my life for so long that it's almost just like oxygen. It's like paper and pencils. Yeah, so open up a Word doc, I have to write something, So anyway, they don't need to do that. They're like so embedded. They don't need marketing.
Yeah, no, I think that the Google makes a ton of sense. And interesting. So the pop-up too, that they opened again, back in the day, 3 years ago, they didn't sell anything then. That was just a, come and learn about the brand, which another personal fun fact, that store and that experience actually convinced me that Google Photos is where I should store all of my photos.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool.
It actually worked.
Good job.
And I have never looked back. It was a great decision. If anyone has any photo storage questions, hit me up. Happy to talk about how much I like Google Photo Storage.
Well, Taylor, Google's another brand that doesn't need marketing to be ubiquitous. It is literally a verb in our
Google it.
vernacular for
Yep.
over 10, at least 10 years. We've been using that. Like, it is such a part of my life. My question is, does opening up physical retail stores really, is that going to really increase sales?
That's a good question. No, because I have a hard time believing, well, and maybe I'm wrong about this. I wonder if their goal to become the Apple store where they're opening Google stores and like, the best of the shopping malls in our prime urban corridors, all of those things. Or are they just going to have like a few really great experiential stores? That's a very those are two different paths.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. Let's take a quick bet. In 5 years, how many permanent Google stores will there be? I'm going to say 8.
I was going to say 15 to 20.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. I think that's
And
reasonable.
and I think that's like I think that will be, it.
Okay. Write that down and we'll come back in 5 years.
Perfect.
All right. Well, Taylor, what else do you know about retail?
So here is the third thing that we know about retail. We know that online grocery sales shrank. Whew, tough on the S words today. But online grocery sales shrank 10% in April, according to a Brick Meets Clicks Mercatus grocery shopping survey, which, is interesting. However, I will say it is still, I believe, 4 times as high as it was pre-pandemic. So take
so
that whole picture.
Saying it shrank is a little misleading. It's just like it went way up and now it's down just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So if you will remember, we're going to take another trip down memory lane and just give a little reminder of what happened last year with online grocery sales. So in our grocery report earlier this year, so this is from eMarketer, they came out with this in September 2020. Basically, things to pay attention to: big gray bar in the second column and very high purple line. So that there was a 52% increase in online sales growth, which is huge. Again, no surprise. If you didn't expect, like, unless you physically couldn't, like by where you lived, proximity to grocery stores, I swear everyone at least dabbled in online grocery last year.
Definitely.
You tried, right? I just like, it's kind of when I say, when people have, I like don't believe anyone who's never done curbside pickup either. I'm like, that's just impossible. You absolutely have. So anyway, we saw a crazy year, but obviously then we're going to see this like percent change go down because we're not going to keep this level of online shopping up. However, the theory is that you're of course going to lose some customers who are going to go back to the store, but that you've convinced a lot of people that this can be a very great and reliable service. So what Brick Meets Clicks and Mercatus has been doing is basically been trying to track like where all these online sales are coming from, which has been really helpful of just kind of trying to understand. So I think my biggest takeaway is that it's a roller coaster. And I'll be really curious to see what happens by the end of this year, since I almost find this is hard to look at too, because sure, January was really high, but man, January was only a few months ago, but we were in a very different place then.
Yeah.
And so the dark blue, I should also say for anyone who's having trouble reading. So the dark blue is delivery and pickup. And then the grayish one is the ship to home. So that's more like, your FedEx, UPS. I think you really should focus on like the dark blue. That's the stuff that we're a little bit more familiar with. That's, Amazon Fresh Direct, Instacart, and then curbside pickup and things like that. It's still going to stay elevated. Like you can see from March, 2020 was 4 billion and we're still at 6 billion in April 2021. Not everyone's vaccinated. Of course, we're still in this like very much of a transitory phase, but it's a service. I don't think we're not going back down to those other levels despite a decline in April.
Just the number of stores that are now offering it that weren't pre-pandemic. But to your point, though, Taylor, just thinking about, click and collect still requires foresight. I have to sit down and make my list and send it to them before I go pick it up. And as I get more active in the world, I'm vaccinated, I'm free, I'm fancy free, whatever, I'm just going to stop by and pick up stuff. So me being the typical grocery consumer, still probably use click and collect, but just not as much.
I totally agree. 100%. Click and collect, I definitely think is, hey, we're going to be really busy this next week. Let's make our lives easier. Let's sit down for 10, 15 minutes, come up with our list, and we're going to pick it up tomorrow, or we're going to have it delivered tomorrow. But yes, as your point is, hey, if you're not busy and you forgot something, who's going to run to the store? Granted, I have moved and there's a grocery store literally across the street from the apartment that we're staying in. So I have had no reason.
Why don't you type up your home address and we'll pull up a Google map so we can talk about it specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good idea.
It's just YouTube.
But and I think that's interesting too. So this is tying into, again, kind of where we're at. So this was our spending as of April, which we're not talking about apparel right now, but can't not talk about this chart without saying that apparel sales are 726% over, and again, April 2020. This is going to be the most drastic year-over-year chart. No one did anything in April. We were all absolutely terrified. Things were really scary. Nothing was open. So, that tells a real story. But what I think is really interesting is that grocery stores are only down 0.2% from this point last year, when this was, toilet paper mania. When everyone was freaking out and buying, big purchases of things. So again, we're still trying to adjust to this new lifestyle. But again, recap of another one of my favorite charts, dining out, so close. Yeah. So close, but still speaks to grocery stores. We're not ever going to a grocery store again either. You're still always going to need groceries, but it is cool to see that we are now spending money on other things as well, which does make me feel good as someone who focuses on the retail industry, to see some other love going to some of our other sectors. But I think there's no way in my mind, we have not officially seen dining out spending eclipse grocery stores again.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked.
It was such an unexpected thing that, dining in overtook dining out for a while, but it's back. It's
back. And then last but not least, one of my favorite open table data. It is almost back. So as a reminder, we are looking at the thick line, open table reservations. We are getting there. In terms of how we are our dining out patterns again. So
just to be clear, 0 is where it was pre-COVID on this chart?
Yeah, so basically you want to see, so everything's compared to 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to get above, once we hit 0, we are back at 2019 levels, which is a weird thing to say, but we're shooting for 0. But, again, I think this speaks to the power of both grocery, and that we can spend money on other things besides grocery, and grocery's not going to struggle either. But I'll be curious to see kind of what these charts look like at the end of the year. So, we'll see. And, James, one last interesting stat too, and I wish I had the exact number in front of me, but you said something too about, click and collect is a real thoughtful thing. It is. That's why your volume, your average volume order is bigger on click and collect. And grocery stores like that too. You're spending more money when you've been a little bit more thoughtful about how much, you're going to spend. So, now, exciting things both in the grocery realm in terms of changes that I think are a long time coming, and dining just getting back to normal.
And Taylor, I've got this new game in my head that I'm developing called Toilet Paper Mania. Because you said toilet paper mania, and I suddenly thought of a game show where there's a pandemic coming and you have to collect as much toilet paper as you can before the clock runs out. I think people are gonna love it.
I actually think that's a great idea, and you could actually almost make it like it's like a supermarket sweep, pandemic edition.
It's just all toilet paper.
Yes, it's like different kinds of, like, pick the right brand of toilet paper. Also, quick, where's the Lysol? Get it before it runs out. Really, God, dark stuff.
Anywho, folks should be checking out the latest episode of our podcast, Where We Buy. Go to wherewebuy.show. This week, check it out. I talked to a gentleman at Trax that was involved. I love this right here. It's like,
hey, you.
Hey, Why are you ignoring me? This is a supermarket Auchan. They're one of their locations in Portugal, and this robot is going around taking photos of all of the shelves. And so people are getting this guy too.
I'd be like, who are you? Get away from me.
So that robot is going around taking photos of all the shelves, and then people who work at the store get notifications when things are in the wrong place or things are sold out. And Trax is a company that does computer vision. They do a lot of other stuff too. So really interesting conversation about the technology of sort of like this in-store computer vision technology. The episode's called Computer Vision in the Supermarket. Interviewed David Gottlieb with Trax. Check out wherewebuy.show is the website where you can stream it whenever you want.
Awesome. And then don't forget, hit the subscribe button somewhere in YouTube. Click the bell icon too. So you're notified when a new show comes out. Our next episode will be next Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. You can find it at everythingweknow.show.
So Taylor, what else do you know about retail?
James, I'll tell you more next week.